Okay, welcome back everybody. This is the Raw Knowledge Podcast with your host, Alex Connor, and we're back with another great guest. We're here just outside the gym. I'm joined with Anthony Ikin. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Yes,
Anthony?
you are.
Beautiful. It's always good when you get the guest name right.
Yeah,
it's a good start, and I've had a few difficult last names. Yours would probably be up there with the easier ones, but I'd say that, but it's like Echo, isn't it? When you were a kid, you would go Echo.
It will make sense the more I tell you about the kind of stuff that I've done and the businesses I've had. The surname will just roll off the tongue easy.
Right, I like it. Well, in essence of that then, Anthony, tell the people who may not know or may not be aware of who you are, what you do, and more importantly, why you do it.
Right. Well, it's been a bit of a journey. So I have been a World Aerobics Champion in my youth when I was younger, and that turned into a career in professional dancing. And I was a soloist at the Moulin Rouge in Paris. I got to tour with John Farnham in Greece, the musical here in Australia, which was incredible.
That is amazing.
And I was a dancer on the very first season of So You Think You Can Dance in Australia.
Yes. Maybe you recognize your face?
It was a while ago now. And then I turned that into like a dance business. So here's how you'll remember my last name.
Right, go on.
I called my dance studio Ikin Dance.
Fair enough. So basically you say I
You'll
can.
never forget it.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I trained budding dancers and just people that wanted to have fun and do it as a little hobby, or ones that wanted to turn it into a professional career. Yeah. I did that for about 18 years, sold it a couple of years ago, and now I'm in the space of personal development, coaching and motivational speaking. So I launched another business called I Can Achieve.
And we can see how this could just brand out, really. I can dance, I can achieve.
Yeah, we all...
I can fitness.
My friends, my family, we all have a bit of a laugh. I'm the only one that seems to use the surname to the business advantage all the time.
But I think that's great.
Everyone else shies away from it, but yeah.
That's beautiful.
And now I'm in that space of helping others achieve their success, whatever success looks like to them.
I like how you said that, because success is different to different people, because it is subjective.
Yeah.
For some people, it is just about money.
Yeah.
For others, it's about the freedom money brings. And I'm sure we'll unpack that, and I really want to get into that. Before we do, I want to kind of go back, because there's so many great things that you mentioned there, like performing.
Yeah.
A mutual friend of ours, Josie, put us in contact. We talked about that dancing side of things and her, I guess, experience with meeting you and dance.
Yeah.
And she says, you've got to speak to Anthony.
Yeah.
Was there anything in your early days that inspired you to be more, creative, to be more of a performer? Was it a natural evolution, or was there any certain people or events that really was the protagonist to kind of get you into that?
I was pretty good at all sports at school. Like I was the...
like an all-rounder sort of thing?
Yeah, I was the track champion and the swim champion and the aerobics champion, which was really kind of just this thing that no one really knew much about. And I remember having the opportunity to either represent Queensland at the Australian track championships for school or go to Brazil for the World Aerobic Championships. And I obviously chose Brazil.
Fair enough.
That's where I wanted to go. And it was just the feeling of doing something that I genuinely loved. I loved music. I loved dancing. I loved traveling. I loved the creative side of that versus the monotony of track and field. I'm not putting anyone down that does that, because I really loved it too. But for me, it was in my DNA to want to experience the color and the movement and the flips and the creativity. It's just who I am.
It is more multi-dimensional. But I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Not to take away anything from track and field, but it's like you get good at one very, astute, refined thing where, the aerobics, you could be over here, you could be over there, you could be in shades of red and blue. It's fleeting.
Yeah. And I loved it. And I remember that being a kind of defining moment of where I was going to take my sporting career. And looking back, I'm so glad that I made that decision to go to Brazil, because that then opened so many doors to so many other things. Definitely hasn't been without hurdles and upset and heartbreak and disappointment. But looking back upon reflection, it was definitely a pivotal moment in my life. And I'm so glad I chose the way that I did.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about, before we flicked the camera, we were talking a little bit about travel.
Yeah.
And, what you can gain from it. So when you went to Brazil, what were some of those learnings, or I guess maybe eye-opening experiences initially? I know for me, when I first went to somewhere quite, say, foreign or exotic, for lack of better words, it was this whole kind of mystery. Like, it was almost a bit aloof, like there was something wild and unpredictable, but in a good way. And it kind of got me excited, and I love that feeling. And as you grow up in life, you don't get many firsts. And I talk about this to my friends a lot, and I think travel is something that can offer that beauty. Like, it doesn't matter how much you travel, you can go somewhere and just the smell, the nostalgia, something, and it just changes. It's magic. I encourage people to travel. So for you, what was your experience, and was that kind of a bit of an elixir to then, want to give you the travel bug, as well as, you said, opening up doors, which we might dive into?
Totally. Both good and bad, my first experience was that trip to Brazil. I went with the Australian team, so it was my first trip without my parents. It was like a 40-hour
How old were you?
flight. I was 16.
Right, okay.
So I was still in high school. I went over there. I loved Brazil. It was incredible. Everyone playing soccer everywhere.
Sao Paulo.
Rio.
Rio.
South of Sao Paulo, about 3 hours, and it was a place. I can't remember the name.
That's
16. I'm 41 now.
No, you've had a few sleeps.
Well, I'll tell you what I can remember is I was so nervous because I was so out of my comfort zone. So I went on stage and I performed my routine, and I was just like deer in the headlights, because it was my first time with this big judging panel and all these people I don't know, and they're from all countries. And it was just so nerve-wracking. So I had that experience, but I scraped through into the semi-finals. And then in the semi-finals, I just did my routine, and it was a little bit better than the first round. And when I was walking back to the audience, I sat down, and all my Australian team members, they were like, great job, that's awesome. And then very quickly, the whole room started to change. And the competition was held up by teenagers with machine guns and like street gangs in Brazil, because they had cottoned onto, there was a room full of international people with their passports on them. Passports over there, if you can steal them, they're worth a lot of value to steal these passports. So I'm 16, I've just come off stage, and I'm hiding under my seat. No real family or friends. My teammates were somewhat my friends, but I don't know them that well. Hiding under a chair from kids barefoot with machine guns. That's what I remember, is just this bizarreness. And they were kids. They were like my age or younger. And then the sirens, like very quickly the sirens happened, and then these kids just ran away. Like it was normal. like it was, I still can't fathom it. And I don't mean this to I don't mean any disrespect to Brazil. I love Brazil. I loved my time there, and I loved the people. But I was privy to a side of it that is so not the Gold Coast, which is where I'd come from.
Yeah.
And such a different version of life than what I had ever known about or had experienced. So I was scared shitless, and then we had security at our doors that night at the hotels, and the next day was the final. So I had scraped through into the final. I was already nervous. I was away from home. I remember ringing my dad and telling him, and he couldn't tell my mum because mum would catch the next flight over and try and save me or something, which wasn't going to happen. I had the finals the next day. I went on stage. The music started. It was live to South American TV. And about 20 seconds into the routine, I broke my ankle on stage. And I put it down to, I was just a mindset mess. I didn't have coping mechanisms to deal with any of those pressures. And so I did this big jump, and I landed, and my foot just went, and I remember laying there, and the music kept playing. I tried to stand back up. I fell again, and no one came to get me. So I was just there. And they had the TV cameras because it was filming. And because the audience was so far away, it took what seemed to me like an hour, but it was probably only 30 seconds before someone came and carried me off. that was my first real international experience. And I look back on it with such beauty and upset, but I wouldn't really change anything. It really opened me up to the differences in lifestyle and culture and a global community that I really wanted to support and love. And you know, that way of life does exist where we were in Brazil. But I still think that country and that culture is spectacular. And I learned so much from that whole experience. I came home, I got my ankle fixed, and I was more determined and driven than ever to continue with this, to continue on the path to one day being that world champion, no matter what it takes, no matter what adversities come my way. And I had to learn that skill pretty young. And I think it made me a much stronger athlete, business owner and competitor moving forward.
It's a baptism of fire. In some respects, character building. And often we find in the strongest, or people who end up achieving a very high level of success, faced a lot of adversity. It's almost something that you've got to go through. It's like when you strengthen steel, you need to smash it up effectively. You have to take it through grades of heat and cold and pressure. You have to stress test it. And ultimately that's what happens to us. Now, it's not for a want of going, well, I want someone to injure themselves, but sometimes depending on the varying degree of pressure, things are going to break, and you're going to get some cuts, you're going to get some bruises, depending on your sport. Things are going to happen to you, but it's how we deal with that adversity that shapes us. You obviously took a lot from that, based on the trajectory of your career. So let's kind of, on from that, let's build on, and we can perhaps touch on any cornerstones that are a big piece of that, like obviously that being one of the main events. So leading on from that, you came back to Australia, you got your ankle fixed. What was the next big sort of step for you? You were obviously very hungry, you were very driven. I imagine there was a lot of practice. Talk us through that.
It was recover, then train. But a new version of training, because I knew I had to get mentally tough. And I'm still really drawn to mindset. More drawn to mindset than I am drawn to physical training, because I believe there's so much untapped power there. So I then went on to, I think the next year, I came third at the World Championships, which I was 17. So it was like, I just scraped in as old enough to enter, because I was turning 18 that year.
Where was this one held?
Las Vegas.
Oh, you beauty. These are great venues.
And so I came third there. And then another pivotal moment for me was a judge came up to me and said, if you can improve the fluidity in what you do, if you can become better at almost dancing, you'll win this title. And so all I heard was get to dance classes to win. And so I did. So that was the other pivotal moment. I went to dance classes, fell madly in love with dance. And that also became the next, still to this day, I choreograph a whole bunch of shows all over the world. That was such an important conversation for me, because it led me on the path of the dance industry as well. And that was just one judge saying one thing to me after coming third, and all I heard was, I need to dance to get better and win. So I think I've always had this drive. I think I'm just realizing it now, like reflecting on these stories. I'm a very driven person, and I appreciate feedback. It's not a negative.
No.
It's like,
it's how you take it. And usually if it's, it has some thought behind it, it is constructive. Because, I mean, if let's assume feedback is direct and it is constructive, you can use that. And why would you not want the feedback? And I think a lot of people who are driven encourage it. They ask for it, they seek it, because they are wanting to know, what is the perspective or the angle I can't see that I'm unaware of because I'm in it. But someone observing from the outside can say, hey, actually, maybe you could improve on this. Have you thought, actually, you know what, maybe, let's do that. And then sure enough. So the more feedback really you can generate, the better. So it's never failure, it's only feedback.
So true.
So you started dance classes. Who was your first dance teacher? Where did you first start dancing?
My first main dance teacher was Robert Sturrock on the Gold Coast. I was very lucky to have him. He's well known as just like this hard ass, no bullshit, like get the work done.
Which what you see is what you get.
Mindset too. but I was a real beginner in this because it sounds like gymnastics or aerobics would transfer easy into dance, but it doesn't, because I've been trained since such a young age that my body's like a plank of wood. It's stiff. I can do all these tricks with it, and I can flip and I can twist and rotate, but I can't, there's no fluidity in what you do. It's really, really stiff. So it's so foreign to me to move like different parts of my body and my hips and all of that kind of stuff. So it really messed my mind up.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mind fuck, because it's like the opposite, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's what, just as a side note, when Josie was doing some dance classes with me, and I'd done some before, and she says, how do you want me to teach you? What do you want me to teach you? I said, teach me how you wish you would have been taught.
Yeah.
In terms of give me the principles, the history, the juice. I want to know the fundamentals, because that's how I coach.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, I can give you my opinion, but I can tell you what works,
Yeah.
and then I can give you my, you know, my perspective on it. But this is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying to me, well, because I said, I've done some bachata. And she goes, right.
Yeah.
Well, everything that you know, she says, about moving and panting, she goes, forget everything and shake it all out and just start from get real loose. And I'm like, what? And then she went through all the history, and that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So just a bit of a digression to jump in, but I get it, because it's very unnatural for people who, like me, we're moving through horizontal and vertical and diagonal, and everything's tight and it's stiff, and we want to be rigid because we're under load. And then when you're dancing, it's just completely, it's like, forget that.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite, which is hard to do.
It's like learning to walk again.
Yes, literally.
In some aspect, and then trying to do that to the beat of a song, and then the underbeat of the beat. And it was like a whole new language.
How long did it take you to pick it up? I mean, how many hours were you putting in? What did your, probably a good question people like to know, you know, what were your days looking like then?
Yeah.
In terms of training, what hours were you putting in to make this a reality?
So I was still at high school, and I was...
You were 18 now? You would have turned 18.
I was 17 when I won that one, and then I started dancing at school. Dance as a subject, but it was really basic. So this Robert Sturrock wasn't that teacher. This was like learn to dance, and this is the school that I went to, Robert, the following year.
Ah, okay. Right, I'm with
and
you.
he was the one that really broke down every bit of movement of everything, and I was just like obsessed with it. And I think that's the athlete mindset as well. When I did gymnastics from a really young age, and that then transferred in competitive aerobics. So that athlete mindset is, you need to get work done in these areas. This is what you have to do. And so I feel really grateful that I came in with that mindset. And also I have that, well, I want to be really great at this, so I have to train elsewhere and learn from the best. So I'd do these little 3-month stints in Los Angeles. I'd train on the Gold Coast with this teacher, and then I'd go over to Los Angeles, which was the best dance hub for what I wanted to do in the world. So you could only stay for 3 months because the ESTA visa, you couldn't stay any longer than 90 days. So I'd just save up all this money, go over there, train, come home. And then because I was playing catch up, because all these other amazing dancers had been doing it since they were so little. So I had to catch up, but I enjoyed that process. And I think it was like a couple of years of training before I started to get noticed and booked for things. And then the cool thing is that none of that training in gymnastics or aerobics that I had, I got to bring all of that into who I was as a dancer. So I just started to get booked for the dancer with this crazy amount of acrobatics and gymnastic and aerobic skills that I could put into the shows. So that was really awesome. And it was back, dancers these days can do bloody everything.
Sing,
everything.
Flair, act. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard game now.
Back when I was one of the few really like high level trickers in the game. Whereas now it's kind of like, they can do it all.
Yeah. It's almost expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that really helped me in my dance career, and it got my foot in the door for a few really big opportunities. One of them being when this is how long ago it was. I sent a DVD in the post over to the Moulin Rouge in Paris.
That's brilliant.
And then they had sent a letter back to say you've been accepted. And it was like within a month or something, I was living in Paris and I was a dancer in their show, but then they noticed those tricks too. And very quickly I became one of their like can soloists. So I'd run on in the middle of the can and just do like 50 backflips.
Jesus.
Land
Like
in
Desolé or
splits.
something. Yeah.
And then run off. And that was kind of my like skit for the night.
Jesus.
But living in Paris and working with all those like amazing dancers from all over the world. So it was, that was a real career highlight for me. Separate, like we were talking before, is that culture.
Yeah.
Diversity is living somewhere else, learning another language, enjoying another country. France being so beautiful, Paris being spectacular.
We'll talk us through what the lifestyle was like when you were over there. Obviously, it's very different in Europe. There's a lot of finesse. There's, the culture is very different. The food, the fashion. Did you learn French? Can you still speak French?
I learned the basics of French. But there was a lot of English-speaking dancers within the company.
Oh yeah, there would have been.
Looking back, that sucks. At the time when I got there, I was like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I can just speak my normal language. But looking back, I wish I really threw myself into learning more French. But I could do the basics. I mean, I had to walk into a bank and open accounts and do all of that kind of stuff. I learned the basics, but I loved the lifestyle. Probably more than the show. Not that I didn't love the show and the experience. But
how many nights were you performing?
6 nights a week, 2 shows a night. So it was 12 of the exact same things a week.
Oh, wow.
That is a Groundhog Day.
How often does that change around?
It's the same show. It hasn't changed in decades.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's still the same show that I was doing.
What?
In 2007.
So hang on, there's still someone who comes in and
does exactly what I did.
Are you shitting me?
No.
That's amazing.
I know.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the thing?
I think, and if anyone from that show ends up watching this, I don't actually know, but I think it sells out. So why change right now something that works?
Yeah. Wow. That's actually an interesting fact.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting, because most things do change at some point. Like I know Cirque du Soleil run something for like a year.
Yeah.
And then they'll flick it around,
or they update it.
Or they'll update it. There's some changes.
Yeah.
But wow.
So this is.
But that could be also something quite iconic.
Yeah.
Because you'd be like, wow, how many people have played this role that you're going to get to play?
Yeah.
20 years ago it was so and so. 5 years ago it was. That could be something as well. So I imagine that got quite monotonous then.
Yeah.
And then, so what did you take from that, like from an athlete perspective or a performer? And when did you feel like enough was enough because maybe you weren't challenged anymore? I don't know, but I imagine that would have been part of it.
Part of it was, but I partied a lot over there, to be really honest. Like, the Moulin girls are famous over there and you get invited to everything. And the Moulin boys are just the plus one of the girls. Even though we're in the show, it's all about the gorgeous Moulin girls. And I would tag along to everything with them because it was like this VIP kind of lifestyle. And it was so much fun for 3, 4, 5 months. And then after that, I was just like, the athlete in me was missing the improvements, the training, the working towards something new, a bigger goal. And this was, even though I was loving living in Paris, it's a spectacular city. It was that Groundhog Day thing, mixed of not just the show, but just that lifestyle of partying and things like that as well. So came home. I've always been like that. I'm just like, I need to get myself out of here. I've got a bigger game to play than what I'm doing right now. So let's go and see what that is.
Were they shocked when you said that, or was it just sort of like, oh yeah, I guess people come and go, or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
They were, and they said, please stay. Maybe there's a role for you in the new show that's coming.
The new show?
And it has never
I was going to say. How old?
I know, so I'm glad I didn't stay.
Yeah.
And then...
if you don't mind me asking, did they pay well? Because I've heard that dancing is like you work a lot, but not always getting the return.
It depends. In a show like that, you're paid quite well.
Right. And you had a lot of time, I guess, then, if you were only doing 2 shows a night. Well, so, I mean, sort of, how long would have you been there to prepare and do it all and get out of there?
We would get there at, I think around 7 p.m.
Yeah.
The first show's probably at 8 p.m.-ish.
Yeah.
I could be a little bit wrong. The second show's at 11 p.m.
Oh, that's
You don't really get out of there till 1:30 a.m. or 2 a.m. That's quite normal there.
Yeah.
And then, you go for dinner and
So
usually...
basically become an IL, yeah.
Yeah. And then by the time you wake up, it is that morning before you have to get ready and go back there
Yeah.
at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
so
it kind of worked in a bit of it. Yeah.
It was really fun at the start.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I remember this. I even tried to like become a casual smoker because I was like, everyone in Paris smokes.
Oh yeah.
So I had those little tiny Vogue ones, the like little skinny things that do nothing. And then I'd bum puff at a cafe with my coffee and I hated it.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't me.
I gave it a go. But no, my experience there was incredible, but it was time to move on.
So you came back to Australia, then what?
Just a quick one, guys, before we carry on with the podcast. For any of you who are interested in taking your health and physique to the next level and you want to remove the guesswork, you're not quite getting the progress that you want, you're not seeing what you want to see in the mirror, and you're not feeling like you're really moving in the right direction, then click the link in the bio below, the apply button, where you can contact me. We can organize a free consultation, no obligation, and discover whether it's a good fit as coach and client. All right, back to it.
Well, I came back to Australia and within like 2 months, there was this show everyone was talking about that was auditioning called So You Think You Can Dance. No one knew anything about it. There was this TV show coming to Australia and I was just like, great, I'll go along. And then it kind of went to the audition and I made the top 20, which becomes the show. And then even when we did the show, because it was season 1, no one knew
anything about it.
Or if anyone would watch it. There's been no dance show in Australia.
It was the pilot.
Yeah.
It was like, let's see if this actually sticks.
Yeah, so we were kind of like,
Hope for the best.
And it just became this huge success. Like the whole country was kind of watching it. There wasn't much reality TV back then. It was only Australian Idol, maybe this show and something else. So it was in the early days of reality TV. And that was a wild ride as well, like being like famous or somewhat famous because you're on this reality show. But then in that world of TV, it was so different to just being a dancer and doing your show. You had to be a personality, and it was about the interview grab, and it was about like your backstory and things like that. And that was like a real wild experience, but I treasure it forever and I loved it. I learned so much from it. But also it was, you had to dance this style one week and this style the next week and this style the week after. And I do feel like my lack of training from a very young age impacted me.
Yes.
Because I was good at the things that I played catch up at and I could implement all my tricks, but I didn't have that really base foundation of some of the styles that were being thrown at us.
Right.
Yeah.
So more like the classic styles, maybe.
Even like
structured.
Actually, to be really honest, my hardest styles were in the like proper crumping hip hop realm.
Yes.
It's not really my personality anyway, but it was just like I hadn't learnt that style of hip hop and the foundations and the techniques. And then some of the ballroom stuff as well. I'd never done ballroom, and the partner worked with that, so it was once again learning brand new styles. But then it had to be filmed and judged by the Australian audiences within like 3 days or something.
Yeah.
It was fun. I don't regret.
No, because I mean,
anything.
it forces growth.
Totally.
Forces you to be diverse and get out of your comfort zone, and ultimately like go, right, well, how resourceful can I be with what I know to put it together? Did you get any training as well each week? Like there was people going, hey, look, you might not know this. This is kind of what we're going to work on.
Yeah, you had a choreographer that taught you the thing and they kept working with you, and then it was like time to perform it. But your mind it was just so quick every week. It was so like, get rid of that routine, learn something new, and like learn a few new routines. Yeah. And then have a solo ready in case you're in the bottom 3 and then you have to do your solo. It's just stressful. Yeah. But I love the stress. And looking back, I'm just so proud of what I did and how far I progressed in it. And I left a better dancer, a more knowledgeable person of another industry. No regrets there whatsoever.
And with all that experience, then you decided to open your own dance studio.
Yeah.
So was that in essence of being able to take a lot of that experience and help people dance and move? Did you feel like there was a gap because maybe people weren't moving their body or they weren't able to learn. For me, I think with the education, like health and fitness has been around forever, just like dancing. But what I've struggled to find is people who are able to communicate knowledge and education in a way that's fun, engaging, and actually applicable.
Totally.
So I don't know if that had been part of your mission as well, and being able to go, well, look, I think I can, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here, but I think I can communicate this knowledge to the audience and have an impact.
Yeah.
So talk us through that.
To be honest, it wasn't until I was 28 when I did So You Think You Can Dance.
Right.
Or 27 or 28. And I don't know if that's a normal thing at that age, but my ego lessened and my wish list got smaller of what I had wanted to achieve.
Yes.
And it was a natural progression for me to want to help or serve or coach or help create or produce or do whatever for other people. And it was pretty quick that I learned I still get a bigger kick out of other people's success than my own. Like it's true. I think it's, and it could be an age thing or it could just be a life experience thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that first decade, like 18 to 28, was really ego and success driven.
Yes.
Wanting to achieve athlete mindset, win at no cost, do what it takes. Everyone else get out of my way. I don't regret that. I think you have to be that way.
Yeah. You have to be selfish to some degree.
You're
going to achieve that level of success because it is very selfish.
Yeah, you have to. I noticed that everything else had to fall to the side a little bit.
It has to be all about that thing.
Yeah.
Live and breathe it.
So it felt really natural for me to grow and expand a dance business to be able to help others because it was like the next phase of my life. I was transitioning to that. Doesn't mean that I still don't like
performing.
Yeah, performing on my own achievements or accomplishments. I still have goals and visions for what I want to do, but I just get such a bigger kick out of serving others.
It's nice to give back.
Yeah.
Or pay it forward, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And I think as we teach, we learn.
Mm-hmm.
We become more well-rounded coaches, athletes, trainers, educators, whatever you want to call it or look at it as. When you're explaining and talking about something, you're unpacking it.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Or, oh, now I understand that better. And it's strange, you have these revolutions.
Yeah.
Which I find fascinating.
Totally.
In that realm. And like you said, we know that by helping others or sharing happiness and success, we actually derive more happiness from it. It's, for example, if I spend money on myself, it's great, sure.
Yeah.
But if I spend money on someone else or share an experience with someone, I quadruple the happiness.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because I've done something nice for someone else, it releases those dopamine hormones.
Yeah.
I can see someone else as it brings joy from this. And I was saying to a client before, there's this old adage of people forget who you are, what you say, what you do, but they'll never forget how you make them feel.
Yes.
And I've always focused on with my business providing an experience.
Yeah.
Because the experience is what people come back for.
Yeah.
And people go, oh yeah, but it's you, or it's this. And it's like, yes, but ultimately it's the experience. So perhaps when people step into your dance studio, in your environment, with your teaching and your music and the smells and the sights and the sounds, that's what keeps people coming back. In any sense of the word, whether it's a supermarket all the way, to again a dance studio.
Yeah.
So what's been some of your most favorite pastimes or elements of having the studio? Obviously one is giving back and witnessing the success, but is there any other accolades that you feel really proud of within? I don't know if there's anyone come through there that specifically has maybe had struggles and now they've have achieved some great things, or whether it's maybe the where you started versus where the facility is now. I'm not too sure.
One student comes to mind. His name was Marty Warren, and he was a male in sports aerobics, and I got to really help him achieve his dream of becoming world champion. And that took a lot of work, a lot of dedication from him, but also from myself, just in a sense of teaching him what I knew, but guiding him more through the mindset, the physical part of training, but then going on those journeys. I'd go overseas with him to these competitions, and he didn't win straight away. It took a whole bunch of international competitions to get him there. That was one really amazing, like, achievement-based thing that I'm really proud of, that I know he's quite proud of as well. But I think when I look back, I really wanted to create a community versus just a dance school that does dance competitions and things like that. I wanted to create a community and think outside the box. So I got the Gold Coast Titans entertainment contract. When the Gold Coast Suns opened, we secured that entertainment. So all the students from kids right through got to perform at these games, got to have these experiences that they will treasure for life. So I think that's one of the proudest things for me, looking back at the studio. But I sold it a couple of years ago. So it was one of those, I did everything that I wanted to do within it.
Is it still labelled?
It's still called Ikin Dance.
Okay.
And I sold it to friends of mine.
Okay,
and it's doing great things in Mermaid Beach. And if anyone's listening that wants any dance lessons, go along to Ikin Dance. They do a wonderful job.
Yeah. I think, who's the lady who runs it now?
It's Sid. Sid is a guy, Sid Mather.
Okay, because I think Jodie was telling me something about, she said to go see someone. I don't know,
Yeah.
I think there's another lady involved as well, but Sid, okay, fair enough.
Maybe Ash. I know Ash does some of the...
Possibly.
Yeah.
I spoke to someone there because she told me to go there because she do different types and genres. But we will, for people listening and watching, we'll definitely put the links in there as well, because it's hard to find sometimes a good facility or a place that kind of caters.
Totally. So it's still Ikin Dance at its core and its values, and it's doing great things. But I got to a point of having that studio where I was exhausted and my passion wasn't there anymore. Once again, I kind of fulfilled so much of what I wanted to do, and I could just see it being more of the same. So I sold it and then moved to America, got married, had a child, came home and opened a whole new business.
There you go. which we want to get onto.
Yeah.
But before we do, there's one other element, which you kind of touched on there, which was the choreography.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned before that you do a lot of choreography for, people, brands, by the sounds of it, organizations around the world. How did that eventuate? Was people coming to you for this? And can you give us an example of some of the things that you choreographed?
Yes.
Please.
So,
my mum would love this because that was one of her dreams to be a choreographer, actually. And a dancer.
Hi, Alex's mum.
Yeah, she'll love that.
It felt like a natural progression, but it was also part of me being a yes person and a bit of a networker and someone that could seek opportunity when I could see it was needed. So I'd put my hand up to opportunities, whether it was paid $1, $100 free, whatever it was. I knew that was something that I wanted to do because I was dancing and I was teaching, but now it's like, okay, I want to create these productions. I
want to put it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I started to work in that world as well. I had built somewhat of a reputation just in especially the Queensland dance community. So clients or things would naturally come to me from just knowing the name, who I was and things like that. So You Think You Can Dance really helped with that as well.
Yeah, word of mouth credibility.
Yeah. And then it was a bit of a snowball of word of mouth. It's not just what I would create, but the professionalism I would bring to the table from a business sense. I would try and be as professional and just all over it.
Yeah.
In every area, from emailing through to taking the call through to quoting through to invoicing, it just wasn't messy. I made sure that I was good in that sense as well. So that kind of just grew and grew and grew, and I started with just some local things. I got booked for the Harry Potter show at Universal Studios Japan.
Wow, that's a big one.
And then they have been bringing me back every single year since then. This is like 7 years ago or something like that, except for the last 2 years because the park's pretty much been shut.
Yes.
Or no one's allowed in. I started doing that. I started doing, I was the associate choreographer for the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games.
Right.
Which was a massive job, a stressful job.
I can imagine.
The Gold Coast is my hometown, so it's something that I'm just...
It's very patriotic.
So proud of.
Sentimental, yeah.
And I remember manifesting that like 5 years. Like as soon as it got announced that was it, I had decided I would be on that team. in a role that I was really proud of.
Yeah, of course.
And made it happen. Not just through like sitting down, manifesting or visualizing, like actually being in the game of reaching out to people, sending things, communicating with who I needed to.
You've got to.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come to you to a degree. And if it does, it's because of the actions that you've previously taken.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big believer of that.
Yeah.
Because nothing fell on my lap.
Totally.
You know, and if it does now, it's only a byproduct of what I've done, which builds momentum.
Yeah.
So I respect that.
And
That's
I feel like manifestation at its best is what you feel you're worthy of receiving. And if you're not at the game of putting yourself out there, I don't think you feel worthy.
correct.
So you're missing a huge step in that process. So if I was putting myself out there and reaching out to people and calling and communicating, things like that, you are worthy. You know you're worthy because you're in the game of it. And so lots of opportunities just kept coming back my way. And I still do things. I've got, I do the main shows at Pink Flamingo on the Gold Coast, the cabaret club there. There's a new one that's just launched called Glitz. I've just choreographed that. And Priscilla the musical is opening at the Star Casino in the middle of the year. And I'm choreographing that musical, which I'm really excited to do with a wonderful team of people that I've known for a long time.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. They were some of my best memories as a kid.
Yeah.
Panto.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
And theatre. But when it encompassed everything.
Yeah.
My fascination for acting and performing is just, I remember sitting there as a kid just being bedazzled by it all.
Yeah.
Everything was very, just the makeup, the costumes, the outfits, you know, the music. I was just sort of overwhelmed by it all, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And that was also, wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I remember we watched this, it was a musical. It had a storyline, but they had, some of the characters were the Kiss band members, but they weren't actually, but I thought they were. And my dad said, no, that's not Kiss, son. But I said, but they look like them. And they went, yeah, but that's the theatrics. And I just remember like coming back from the show, it was with the school, and I was just like, wow. Like I just couldn't get over it. I was like, how can you do that?
Yeah.
Like that has always been my thing, whether it's from live music or even watching someone perform. It's captivating when someone is at a level. There's a presence in that. It demands attention in the bestest way.
Yeah,
totally. You know, and that for me is always something that's I've been fascinated about. And this is probably a nice little dovetail to bring us full circle. But your business now, you know, you're really passionate about helping people from an internal perspective. Let's talk about that. You know, it sounds pretty obvious how you've came to that place. Yeah. You know, from the conversation we've had, but. Now, what does that look like? Yeah. How are you doing this? Who are you working with? And maybe talk us through some of the concepts that exist within that framework.
So I launched I Can Achieve in America a couple of years ago, but I feel like I've been doing this work for decades, whether it be on myself and everything that I learned as an athlete or a performer, or a gay man having to come out who's now married and had a child through surrogacy. Personally, there's a lot I've had to deal with to get the level of happiness and success and satisfaction and fulfillment that I wanted. So the business is in its infancy stage, being only a couple of years old, but it's got decades of experience that I bring to the table. So I launched it a couple of years ago. I did my training through Jay Shetty, who's just an amazing mentor and motivator and speaker and coach to so many people. Launched this business where I work as a success coach, whether it be one-on-one or in group formats. But the thing I want to make clear is success isn't just Jeff Bezos level of success, whether it be a figure or a status thing. It's not that to me. Success is whatever success looks like to you. And I'll ask you this, what is success to you?
Freedom.
Yeah.
And I love that question because it's something that I talk about to some of the coaches that I coach now.
Yeah. And
even just having these open conversations with a lot of like-minded people. And it's true. And we kind of alluded to this before. I think it might have been just before we turned the mics on, it was at the start of this conversation. This is really critical.
Yeah.
Because people, like you said, think success is either fame or status or monetary value.
Yeah.
But I know, and you know, because you probably work with them, that I work with some of the people that are very financially secure. And some people that are very famous.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what, they're not happy or healthy.
So unhappy.
So I don't know if you know of the book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Okay.
You must read it. It's
I will.
top 3.
I will.
He was the first psychologist, he's done a couple of TED Talks, he's very funny, very comical as well, to study positive psychology.
Yeah.
So when we have a chart, we have a graph,
Yeah.
and that's the title of his book. It's a bell curve.
Is he in South America? He has an institute in South America now?
I believe so.
Positive psychology?
Yes.
Okay.
And he sort of said, well, you know, hang on, so outliers, right?
Yeah.
So you take a graph and we coach to the standard. And he
Yeah.
goes, well, and everyone was like, well, we need to bring these people to the average.
Yeah.
And he went, what about those dots up there? And I went,
Yeah.
what do you mean? And he went, they're the outliers. They're
Yeah.
like above. And he goes, well, why don't we, you know, have a look at what they're doing? And everyone went, no, they're fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to know that. We just need to get the people here back up. And he goes, yeah, but if we figure out this is his thought process, if we figure out what they're doing,
Yeah.
wouldn't we then bring not only the average up, but the people below above average?
Yeah.
And who the fuck wants to be average?
Yeah.
So long story short, because I'll let you read the book, and if anyone's listening, I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast because it's a belter. The 2 contributing factors for happiness happen to be my core values,
Yeah.
which is health and relationships.
Yeah.
So if you've got those things, you've got everything,
Yeah.
right? And I think that with that character building and success, so to answer your question without going on a big rant, because I'll throw the ball back to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do get quite off on
I
a
love
my
it.
podcast, so fuck it. Anyway, but you know, I think freedom and to extrapolate on that, because that's a bit short-lived, it's having the ability to obviously have my health and relationships, but doing what I want, how I want, when I want. People go, well, you do that. And I go,
Yeah.
we don't though.
Yeah.
We are free. And in Australia, we've got it very good.
Yeah.
And if we've lived in different countries, you know, and you've done travel, you can see that with first world problems. But being able to do that, so finance is part of that sphere,
Yeah.
right? It gives you that security financially, but it allows you to help.
Yeah.
I lost my dog
Yeah.
personally because I didn't have the finances to save him.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
So we can sugarcoat it any way we want, but because there was a figure
Yeah.
that I couldn't pay at the time, this is one of the lessons I think I learned. I couldn't save my best friend.
Yeah.
That didn't sit well with me. So that was a hard lesson.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, is that fair or is it not fair? Well, that's life.
Yeah.
So people always go, oh, things are too expensive. Well, earn more money.
Yeah.
But okay, it's not that simple. But then that comes from, well, like you said before, self-confidence. Well, we need to work from the inside out.
Yeah.
One of my friends calls it going on the hero's journey, getting to the cross, addressing all those issues.
Yeah.
You mentioned before about being a gay man.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of adversity you've had to face.
Oh my God, yes.
You know, with that, and times have changed, and now it's, you know, it's.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy for people, but it's different.
But the scars are still there.
Exactly.
Times have changed, yes. But those scars from when you're 6 and you're different, they don't just disappear. They need work.
Yes. And they're the things that we must go back and address to create growth. But
Yeah.
sorry, we've got time, but no, I sort of went off on a tangent there. But it is a great question, Anthony. It's a phenomenal question, and people should probably spend some time on that at home as well, I think. And actually, because we've got to reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to redefine success.
Yes.
Yeah.
And please extrapolate on that, because I think a lot of people, they got it wrong. But the thing is, if they really thought about it, they would actually have a better perspective. But again, it's like, oh, I think success is just materialistic. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Because once you figure out like what you want your days to look like and reverse engineer it, the holidays, the material, they fade away, because you're like, I'm going to train no matter what. I'm still going to go to the gym.
Yeah.
I'm still going to walk on the beach.
Yeah.
I'm still going to hang out with my friends. So nothing changes.
Yeah.
Maybe I just have a better car and I live in a different place and I go on a few more holidays.
Yeah.
But if the sole goal is money, unless you're interested in finance, I think, you know, which I think a lot of people are they supposedly are with crypto, but it's like, not really, then I think you're just living a false lie. So.
And we don't need any more evidence. Look at Steve Jobs' last words. Have you read what he wrote before he passed? It's basically saying none of that stuff matters.
Yeah.
Here's what matters. But it's not saying that you shouldn't want that stuff or go after it or be driven by that, as long as there's a holistic approach to filling the other cups as well. Purpose, fulfillment, happiness, love, family, friends, relationships, like you said. Success can be a whole number of different things, and it's different to everyone. But that's what I work on as a success coach for different people, and I cause wonderful results with them. Some people don't even know what success looks like when they come to me, but they know they want more out of life. and they're the people that I work with. It's not saying that they're unhappy or unfulfilled right now. They just know they want more, and maybe they don't know how to navigate to get there. And I help people get there.
For a series of meaningful conversations, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because there's no magic.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, another misconception about coaching and whatever it is. There isn't any magic. Like you can teach skill sets, but it's this, what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow.
It's deep work and not surface. And I love that space. I'm so passionate about being in that space and helping people along the journey to that deep work to uncover so many wonderful things. And separate to that, I work as a keynote speaker and a motivational speaker.
Which would tie in nicely.
Yeah, it's parts of my stories, parts of other people's stories, and then some really helpful messaging and some tangible things that you can take away and work to improve your own life as it is right now. So
that's great.
Yeah, I'm really loving that space. I still do parts of my choreography work. I keep my few core clients and service them because it just means so much to me to keep my own success, my own happiness. And then other than that, spending time with my husband and my little 11-month-old, it's a beautiful life.
So that is what success means to you?
Yeah.
With those things that you kind of answered it there, I guess, with all those things you encompassed.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I want to get on to some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Before my main question, which I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
These are a bit more light-hearted and fun in nature.
Yeah.
So my first question is, and because you've traveled, this one might be quite good.
Yeah.
If you could wake up anywhere in the world tomorrow, gut feeling, where would it be? And you could be with your 11-month-year-old and your husband.
Yeah.
You can take them. You can have all that because that can obviously play a factor. One place that just gets you. You feel it.
Beautiful boat, Greek islands.
Nice.
Crystal clear water.
Oh yeah.
Diving in,
Blue.
coming back in for lunch. Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. That was our honeymoon. So I've experienced it. I know what it feels like, and it's
Nostalgia.
spectacular.
I've not done the Greek islands myself, but a friend of mine showed me this paragliding.
Yeah.
And he said, you've got to see how blue this water is. And he showed me on the video, and I was like, wow. He goes, it doesn't look real, does it? I said, no, it doesn't.
It's not real.
It's like as blue as our mic lights.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And blue is my favourite colour,
Yeah.
so.
Mine too.
Yeah, I'll have to go there. Yeah, it's like, woo. It's like you're drawn to it a bit more as well, probably, right? It's like calm, cool.
Yes.
The second one is, perhaps on the back of the lunch then, if you have or had one last meal, or your favourite meal, and it can be entree, can be main, dessert, drinks, what would that look like? Ooh. Is there anything that you can't say no to? Could be like mum's meal, could be a family meal, could be something you've discovered while you're traveling, I'm not sure.
I wish I was fancier than what I'm about to tell you. But it's
burger and chips.
it's hot chips and gravy.
Oh no, that's right. Oh mate, you're speaking to a
there
British
has to be
British
wine.
man, so.
I just love wine, whatever the mix. It can be rosé, Pinot Grigio, red wine, whatever it is. Just wine, hot chips and gravy.
There you go. That's quite British. Well, the chips and gravy.
I love British pub
food.
food.
You've had the proper chips and gravy.
I love it.
Bit of mushy peas.
Love bangers and mash.
Oh yeah. it's Lanito, is it? But then again, we say that, but and no pasta. People think we're quite fancy. It's not. It's peasant food, and we know that.
Yeah.
Because it was actually prostitute pasta. Was because the prostitutes would eat. They couldn't afford it, and it's literally that's a true story, by the way. Yeah, prostitute pasta is a type of dish because the prostitutes used to cook it 'cause it was cheap. That's what they could afford. So that is a dish that's where that name comes from in Italy.
Yeah.
So if you watch, and you go in the back streets of Italy now, it's very different, but you still see in certain parts that old ladies making the pasta from scratch.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's wheat and sauce.
Yeah.
Bread with sauce on it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously, and it's the most popular cuisine in the world, arguably.
Spectacular.
So the basics are the best, which is a great philosophy. The last rapid fire question before the main one is, if you could choose a superpower, make one up, what would it be and why? It'd be absolutely anything.
It would be, I don't know. I would love to fly. I'd love to fly and float and hover and just that feeling. I've experienced it with skydiving and things like it, and it's just incredible. think that would be awesome.
Hey, you could fly to Greece.
Exactly. But I want the boat. I could just fly and land on the boat.
There you go. That's easy. It would come in handy though. But yeah, flying would be pretty cool. Right? I think we've got this innate desire as humans to feel that. And I think skydiving is about as close as it gets at this point in time. Who knows what the rest of the brain's for?
I dream about flying all the time. It's just like
Neo.
this feeling. Yeah.
We'll get there one day.
Yeah.
And my final question, Anthony, that I ask all my guests is, and you've somewhat touched on it in the podcast, but can you identify a fear that you've had or that you currently may have? What you learned from this fear or what you are learning from it, if it's something that you're still working through. It can be something small, it can be something sentimental, it can be something huge, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
I recently have had a bit of a life transformation from hearing a quote from a friend of mine who said the quality of your life is determined by the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And I've always been known as, to my friends and family, as someone that will speak my mind. But I've still been very fearful of certain conversations with certain people. I've started very recently to be less fearful in that sense and speak my truth from my heart, regardless of what result I think it may cause. And I'm not saying I'm out there being an asshole to people or anything like that.
No, for sure.
I'm speaking what I feel. And what
You're being true to yourself.
Yes.
You're having your opinion in a respectful manner.
Yes. And they're the unwilling conversations I'm at. My life is starting to include more of those. And I love it.
It's freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of takes a bit of a weight off.
Yeah.
It is hard though. It is challenging.
Yeah.
And I don't think people really, we can all relate.
Yeah.
But when we're in that situation, it's a lot harder than what we perceive.
Yeah.
But on the opposite side of it is growth.
Growth, yes. And freedom, once again, it's that freedom. I'm not out there to upset or anything. It's just to be yourself, to speak your truth. If the intention's good, if the reason behind what you're trying to communicate is you and it comes from the right place, then it's freedom to communicate how you want, how you truly want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's
and I didn't do that for a long time. And I think that's part of the journey of the scars of being gay, or having to come out or holding back or not offending people. It's a journey for other people in that same position. And I'm 41 now, and I've noticed that's still at play with some of the unwilling conversations of things you had to hide for so long. But I'm overcoming that, and that's my latest fear transformation, and it's proving to be really beautiful.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
So you'd be very aligned.
Yeah.
Which is, again, easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it's worth going on that journey, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful way to round out what's been quite an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
You know, we've been through a bit of a journey as well. It's been great. I appreciate your time. For people who want to know more, or perhaps they want to follow along with you, you know, we mentioned some links.
Yeah.
You know, obviously your services, things that you still do.
Yeah.
Where are the best places for people to go? And we'll make sure we put those in the show notes below, guys, and obviously in the podcast links wherever you're listening and watching.
Platform I use most is Instagram. So it's just my Instagram handle that you can share, and I'll give you my website and stuff like that. But I just like to focus on one kind of social media platform and not get too lost in too many of them. So
it's a bit like that.
I'm just Instagram based mainly.
Send everyone to the mothership and you go from there.
Yeah.
So just before we sign off then, if you could give everyone a piece of advice, something that everyone can do, something simple that they can do every day to improve their life right now, what would it be?
One thing?
Just one.
And it can't be call me for a one-on-one success coaching journey.
Well, it could be, yeah. It could be.
No, it's not.
But something, I guess, something simple, actionable that people can do right now today to improve their life. It might be drinking 3 liters of water a day, bang. But something maybe you do in your daily routine.
I think it would be replace negative thoughts with 3 positives as quick as you can. Get off that journey of negativity, imposter syndrome, toxic mindset. As soon as it arises, silence it by 3 positives, because you need to have 3 times the amount of positive as you do a negative to cancel it out. And just get on top of that negative thought before it changes the course of your entire day.
Love it. Anthony, thank you.
My pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you for your time and thanks for
you.
sharing. Guys, as always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating and a review. And of course, if you like this, share it with someone. It helps the channel grow and pay it forward. We've talked about it today in this episode. And until the next time, guys, stay fearless.
See you guys.
For those of you who are confused, frustrated, and sick and tired of not seeing the results that you want or deserve, make sure that you click the Apply for Coaching button in the description below and line up a completely free consultation with myself where we can discover if it's a good fit as client and coach and take your health and physique to the next level once and for all.